It was a typical weekday afternoon, and I had stopped by Walmart to pick up a few household essentials. As I navigated the aisles, casually checking my shopping list, I noticed a man who seemed to be browsing nearby. At first, I didn't think much of it. After all, Walmart is usually bustling with shoppers. As I navigated the aisles, casually checking my shopping list, I noticed a man who seemed to be browsing nearby. At first, I didn't think much of it. After all, Walmart is usually bustling with shoppers. But as I moved from one aisle to another, I began to notice him more frequently. He wasn't shopping, he was following me. My heart started to race as I tried to shake off the feeling of being watched. I told myself maybe it was just a coincidence, but his presence felt too deliberate. I decided to test my suspicion by making a sudden turn down an empty aisle. Sure enough, moments later he appeared at the other end, his eyes scanning the shelves but always keeping me in sight. Panic set in as I realized I was being followed. I tried to stay calm and think rationally. Should I confront him? Should I alert someone? I quickly dismissed confronting him, fearing it could escalate the situation. Instead, I discreetly moved towards a more crowded area of the store, hoping to lose him in the shuffle. But he persisted, staying several steps behind me as I maneuvered through the aisles. His presence felt invasive, like a dark cloud hovering over me. I could feel his eyes on me, and every nerve in my body screamed with discomfort. I made a beeline for the checkout counter, hoping the presence of other people would deter him. As I waited in line, I stole glances over my shoulder, confirming he was still there, lingering at a distance. The cashier noticed my unease and asked if everything was okay, but I couldn't bring myself to vocalize my fear. With my heart pounding, I paid for my items and hurried towards the exit, constantly checking behind me to ensure he wasn't following. I reached the parking lot and practically ran to my car, locking the doors as soon as I was inside. Once safely seated behind the wheel, I took a deep breath and dialed the store's customer service number. I explained the situation, describing the man and asking them to alert security. They assured me they would take action and thanked me for reporting it. I drove home shaken and unsettled, replaying the events in my mind. The experience left me feeling vulnerable and anxious, realizing how quickly a routine trip to the store could turn into a frightening ordeal. In the days that followed, I remained cautious, avoiding Walmart for a while and taking extra precautions when running errands alone. I also shared my story with friends and family, urging them to trust their instincts and stay alert in similar situations. While I never found out the man's intentions, I learned a valuable lesson about listening to my intuition and seeking help when feeling threatened. The incident taught me to prioritize my safety and be more aware of my surroundings, especially in public places. It was a crisp Friday evening, and I had just finished a long day at work. Eager to head home, I walked towards the parking lot where I had left my car earlier that morning. The lot was relatively empty, with only a few scattered vehicles under the flickering light poles. As I approached my car and fumbled for my keys, I noticed a group of 5 men lingering near the entrance of the parking lot. They looked out of place, dressed in hoodies and baggy jeans, their faces partially obscured by baseball caps and scarves. A sense of unease crept over me, but I tried to shake it off as I unlocked my car door. Just as I settled into the driver's seat and started the engine, I saw the group of men begin to move towards me with purposeful strides. Before I could react, one of them banged on my window, startling me. "Get out of the car!" he shouted, his voice harsh and demanding. Panic surged through me as I realized what was happening. My heart raced as I fumbled for the door lock, but before I could even process my next move, another man appeared at the passenger side, brandishing something that glinted in the dim light. A knife. Fear gripped me like a vice as I scrambled to comply with their demands. The man with the knife opened my door forcefully, his eyes cold and determined. "Out now," he ordered, waving the knife threateningly. Shaking with adrenaline, I stumbled out of the car, my hands raised in surrender. The group surrounded me, their faces masked by a mix of aggression and desperation. One of them shoved me roughly against the side of my car, causing me to wince in pain. "Keys," another demanded, holding out his hand expectantly. I quickly tossed them towards him, hoping to appease them and avoid any further violence. They wasted no time. Within seconds, they piled into my car and sped away, leaving me standing alone in the deserted parking lot, shaken and in disbelief. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, trying to process what had just happened. The cold night air stung my cheeks as I reached for my phone to call the police. My hands trembled as I recounted the details to the dispatcher, trying to remember every face and every detail of the harrowing encounter. The police arrived swiftly, their questions a blur as they took my statement and assured me that they would do everything possible to track down my car and apprehend the perpetrators. But in that moment, all I could feel was a profound sense of violation and vulnerability. Days passed before I received news that my car had been recovered, abandoned in a rundown neighborhood several miles away. It was damaged, stripped of valuables, and covered in fingerprints, a haunting reminder of the night that had turned my routine trip to the parking lot into a terrifying ordeal. The incident left me with scars that ran deeper than the physical damage to my car. It shattered my sense of security and left me constantly looking over my shoulder, wary of every shadow and every unexpected movement. But amidst the fear and uncertainty, I found solace in the support of friends and loved ones who rallied around me during those dark days. Their reassurance and kindness helped me slowly rebuild my sense of safety and regain a semblance of normalcy in my daily life. To this day, I remain vigilant and cautious, always mindful of the potential dangers that can lurk in the most mundane of places, a lesson learned all too painfully on that fateful night in the parking lot. It was a quiet Wednesday evening, and I was nearing the end of my shift as a cashier at a local grocery store. The store was unusually empty for that time of day, with only a few straggling customers picking up last-minute items before closing. As I scanned groceries and exchanged small talk with the regulars, I noticed a man lingering near the produce section. He was tall and slender, wearing a worn-out jacket and a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. Something about him seemed off. His intense gaze and jittery movements made me uneasy. As I counted out his change, he leaned in closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "You should be careful," he said cryptically. "There are things here, things you can't see." Instead, he lingered by the exit, staring out into the parking lot as if lost in thought. I watched him warily from behind the counter, feeling a growing sense of unease. It was getting late and the store would be closing soon. But as the woman approached the checkout counter, she glanced towards the door with a puzzled expression. "Did you see that man?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. I nodded hesitantly. "Yeah, he was odd. Did he say something to you too?" She shook her head. "No, but when he left, I swear I saw something. Something dark like a shadow following him out." The store felt eerily quiet now, the fluorescent lights casting long shadows across the aisles. As I finished closing up for the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been off about that man. Not just his appearance or his strange words, but something darker, something lurking just beneath the surface. I locked the doors behind me and hurried to my car, glancing nervously around the parking lot. The streetlights cast a dim glow over the empty spaces, and I couldn't help but feel relieved to be leaving that unsettling atmosphere behind. But as I drove home, the image of the man's haunted eyes and the woman's words about the shadow lingered in my mind. I wondered if there was more to his cryptic warning, if perhaps there were things in that grocery store that I couldn't see or didn't want to see.